Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Yesterday I was walking down the street. I usually do a walk, for a half hour or so every day. And I saw something kind of remarkable. Now, I had mixed feelings when I saw it, and I'll tell you why. But there was a dog that got away from its owner and was running down the street, like literally running down the street. And cars would stop and honk, and he would, the dog would kind of run out of the way. And then there were people who actually got out of their vehicle to help and try to stop the dog. And it created a little bit of a traffic situation. But it was inspiring on one hand to see, all these strangers just come to the aid of a dog, right? But it also kind of made me sad because more than likely, and I'm not judging these people, but more than likely, these same people that opened up their car and went running after this dog to help save this dog's life think little to nothing of people who are living in poverty as they drive by them and so forth. And so I started thinking of it from both perspectives. And like I said, I see the hope in humanity because of that type of action. But I also see the problems of the world because of the lack of that same kind of action when it comes to each other. And I have to ask myself, why? Why would somebody act like that with a dog, but yet when it comes to a person who's suffering, or they do nothing? And I think a lot of it, the majority of the time, and I'm just guessing, but I bet you I'm right, is because we all see ourselves as separate from one another. The reason why people aren't running out of their car figuratively to help save the environment is because we view ourselves as being separate from the environment itself. Yet evidence is mounting every day that we're abusing the environment at an alarming rate and how sick the environment is. Every day we see evidence of poverty and the disparities of the wealth amongst not only nations, but amongst each other, and yet we do nothing about it and so forth, right? But yet, in the midst of this, these miracles are happening too. So I have mixed feelings about these miracles as well, because people tend to see the miracles that they've had for themselves, because I think most people have at least seen something on TV. Now, whether they knew anything about it or thought anything about it or believed anything about what they were seeing on TV, or if they thought it was a scam or whatever, I don't know. But most people have seen evidence of UFOs in videos. Maybe they've seen it with their own eyes. Some people have seen crosses of light in windows and so forth. Millions of people have. But yet they might not put two and two together. They might not say, okay, well, the UFO thing is related somehow to the cross of light thing, right? Or vice versa. Or the healing waters that were reported in Mexico and Germany and India, right? And there'll be hundreds more eventually, but right now there's only the 3 that are known. And yet they might not see that as related to UFOs or so forth, right? And yet the problems in the world and the miracles in the world are all interconnected in a way. And there's a reason why they're going on right now as we speak. Now, in the midst of this, quietly, quite unexpectedly, like Jesus even himself said, that he'll come back like a thief in the night in an hour when you least expect it. That's exactly how the Christ returned. He didn't come with triumphant, arrival with trumpets blazing, which were all symbolic, right? It's nothing more than people misinterpreting their own scriptures about what's going down right now. But yet, just like Jesus when he was rode into Jerusalem, right? Rode in on a donkey, very humble, very simple. The Christ is doing the same thing today. Very simple. And people see Jesus and Maitreya as separate and unrelated, or they see him as in contrary to one another, when in actuality, they're all a part of the same group of masters. They're all interconnected. They're all here to help humanity. People see the masters as separate from us, when actuality and the reality, they're one and the same from us. There's no difference. People view God as being separate from them, which I think is the real evil amongst religions, is the fact that people believe God to be separate. And it creates all sorts of ills amongst people. People feel starved spiritually because of it. Also, people feel that they can be as corrupt or as destructive as they want because God is separate from them. We harm each other because we feel ourselves separate. There's no separation, and that's the point of this message, is that Maitreya is going to take that lofty idea that we all have about unity and brotherhood, and he's going to bring it right down to reality for us so we can see how to accomplish it. Now, Maitreya is going to tell you the only way to go forward to accomplish unity and brotherhood and peace and create peace in the world is to share the world's resources, to take the excesses that each country has and give it freely to those countries that need it, and vice versa. The countries that need some of those excesses have excesses of something of their own that they can give back as a quote-unquote payment for those resources. And that in and of itself will start to bring about the trust, the needed trust that each nation needs to have with each other. That will eventually bring about a sense of justice in the world. And then the whole thing will start. And as Reagan, you remember President Reagan from 30 years ago or so? He coined the phrase trickle-down economics, right? Where he said, if you give all this money to the rich, it's going to trickle down to the poor, right? Well, obviously that's not true. But the truth of the matter is, if the nations start to share the world's resources, it's going to start to trickle down to all of us, to where governments will start to give back to its people, and rather than, because they start to trust trust other nations, they don't need to build such a huge military like the United States is doing or so forth. We could take some of that money and build infrastructure or build programs for its people to live a sane, healthy life. Some businesses, not all of them, will start to see that as the way forward, that they don't need to make such huge profits, but yet can still perform a service to humanity on whatever level they're doing or whatever they're doing, and yet take some of those profits and give it back to not only their employees, but to some of the people around the world to help, have a saner life and so forth. So it's not, as we start to trust and nations start to trust, that trust will start to trickle down, as above, so below, so to speak, will start to kind of trickle down to each one of us, to where eventually, not right away, but pretty soon, peace will start to be engendered amongst all the individuals too, where crime will start to kind of become a thing of the past and so forth. And Maitreya, when he talks about peace, he's talking about nothing more than true, lasting peace, not the absence of war, but peace that will go on ad infinitum, on into the future. And as Maitreya says, without peace, there could be no future. But once we create that peace to create that future is far better than any one of us could possibly imagine at this time. But in the meantime, and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.